And welcome to Chaos to Clarity. I'm meteorologist Bernie Rayno, your Friday afternoon update. This will hold through the weekend. We do have Hurricane Erin. It became a hurricane around 11 o'clock Eastern time. Here are your headlines with Erin as we head into next week. It's going to intensify all weekend. This is going to be a major hurricane as early as Saturday. And we do have this ramping up to a Category 4 hurricane by early next week. That's maximum sustained winds of 130 miles per hour at least. Now, early next week, it'll be located east of the Bahamas, up and down the eastern seaboard, and we've been talking about this, rough surf, rip currents along the East Coast all next week, even across the Northeast and New England, where we do not believe there's going to be a direct impact. There's going to be rough surf. And for some, especially eastern North Carolina, we could be looking at what could be a very damaging surf, especially if this gets within about 100 miles of the Outer Banks here. All right, let's take a look at the satellite here, and okay, there we go. Here is Erin. One thing to note on the satellite is that already the circulation looks pretty large. You can see how far it extends. Here's the main core, but you can see the clouds and the circulation extend very far to the north and west already. I think this is a telltale sign that eventually this is going to become quite a large hurricane. However, you'll notice little breaks in the clouds. Here's one here, even a little on the western side, but on the northern side, this is clearly dry air that has gotten in around the circulation. And that's why Erin, which is over lessening wind shear and warm water, hasn't intensified further. Let me show you the water vapor loop here really quick, and you can see there's the pockets of dry air. It's not a lot, but it's enough. See, in here, and then especially on the eastern side. I think what's going to happen, the upward motion is going to start mixing this out. And you could already see this inner core starting to develop here, right in here. And this has the shape of an intensifying hurricane. So it's going to intensify, I think, slowly this afternoon, and then Friday night into the weekend. I think this really gets going here. Speaking of the dry air, let me zoom out a little bit, because all week we've been showing the amount of dry air to the west and north of the storm. You'll notice it's getting a little smaller, right? The thickness is getting less and less. The other thing that you see, at least on the northwestern side, this dry air is not coming in to the storm at all. It's starting to get pushed away. And you even see that here on the eastern side, that the storm is starting to push the dry air away on all quadrants. So once we get what's left of this dry air out of here, this looks like Erin is developing its own environment around it in which to thrive, and it's going to thrive. It is going to rapidly intensify here, beginning especially tomorrow. Water temperatures are exceptionally warm in here. Take a look at water temperatures right in here, 83, 83, 84 degrees. And in addition to that, this area with less dry air, and you're going to be looking at lessening wind shear. I'll show you the wind shear in this area coming up, but right in here, you're going to have ideal conditions for development, and that begins Friday night, right? And it lasts until when? Monday. I mean, you've got all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and most of Monday for Erin to get better organized here. So that's the concern that we have, and that's why we're very bullish on the fact that Erin is going to become a major hurricane here. All right. Now, before, I was going to do something. I've changed my mind on order. Let me show you why we think that Erin is going to rapidly intensify. I want to go to the wind shear. And as you know, that if you follow me, what I like to do is look at the 200 millibar. Okay. Well, let's take a look at, see, here's Erin right here. All of this north of the Leeward Islands. What does it look like aloft? What's the wind feel like aloft? Take a look at that, and you can see an outline, and you're going to see this the entire weekend, that Erin's going to be underneath this upper high. It's right in here. and that means low wind shear. I already showed you the water temperatures. That's Saturday morning. How about Sunday morning? What does it look like? Well, here's Sunday morning. Here's Erin right here north of Puerto Rico. It'll be, yeah, there it is. You can see it. There's Erin north of Puerto Rico. What does it look like in the upper part of the atmosphere at around 200 millibars? Low wind shear. Again, you could see the outline of the high in here. Here's the outline of the high aloft. So it's right over Puerto Rico in low wind shear. So that's Sunday. How about Monday? Let's go to Monday morning. Where's Erin? And this is where the tracks diverge a little bit here. So there it is, east of the Bahamas. What does it look like at 200 millibar? An upper high. Look at the shape of the upper high right in here. Low wind shear. I mean, that's a problem. That's why I think this is going to go to Cat 4. At least, it's going to go to Cat 4. That's sustained winds of at least 140 miles per hour. 130 miles per hour. Okay. Where is Erin going to go? I want to show you this again. I love looking at historical tracks, and that's what we're going to look at now. So what I did was I took all of the tracks. I took the track of Erin where it was at 2 o'clock. And what I did was I said, well, 60 nautical miles around this where Erin is now, during the month of August and September, where have storms similar to where it's located now gone? Just to get an idea of the possibilities. I understand the argument that every storm is different, but I always like starting with the history. So here's Erin, right? And these are all the historical tracks. You'll note, and let me zoom in a little bit so you can see this a little better. There are tracks that go into Florida still. Now, do I believe the meteorology dictates that there will be a landfall in Florida? I do not, but it just shows you the history of it. And you know what? I've just learned you've got to be very careful with these systems. Again, I do believe that Florida's not in play, but the history says it does. I want to show you this graphic that I was talking with our Dan Kowalski, our hurricane expert. He was our hurricane expert for years. And what he told me about was this rule. It's called the Bobby Haybear box. It's a National Weather Service meteorologist. And what he did is he has a box here. And any storms, any hurricanes that go in this box, especially if they're strong hurricanes, can hit South Florida. And it's the point right here, 20 north, 60 degrees west. If you get a hurricane, especially if it's a strong hurricane, if you get it north of this point, it is very, very unlikely historically to get a hurricane landfall in South Florida, even Central Florida, but especially South Florida. So, once Erin goes north of that point, I'll feel a lot more comfortable about saying Florida. I know nothing shows that Florida is in play that I see, but to be on the safe side, I want to wait and see that 2060 point. I just want to make sure before you clear someone that Erin is moving to the north before I do anything about clearing Erin. All right, but again, back to the historical tracks. And the one thing if you just ignore these tracks into Florida and just concentrate on the tracks here, there are 59 tracks in the Atlantic. Of the 59 tracks, there are 8 impacts along the East Coast. 8. So that's about 15%. So what does that tell you? That tells you history says there's an 85% chance, given where Erin is located, that we will be looking at direct impacts, and that's rain and wind along the East Coast and especially the Carolina coast. That's what history says. The majority of these storms do tend to go out to sea. But I will say this, as I've looked at this graphic over the last couple of days, I see more and more tracks showing up closer to the Carolina coast, closer, and less tracks for Bermuda. That's because this system is just now starting to move to the northwest, to the west-northwest. My contention is that the modeling has been too far east with the track. And I've been proven right so far because the models continue to come west. Now, the real question with this, I believe, is how close to North Carolina the Outer Banks can this get? If it gets within 100 miles, then you're going to get around 100 miles, you're going to get hurricane conditions along the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and there would probably be a storm surge of 3 to 5 feet. So that's what I'm worried about. Now, let me show you where we're going on here. I've talked about this all week on the AccuWeather Network. There is a point where I think you have a fork in the road, where this is where we find out how close Erin will get to the North Carolina coast, right? And the time frame is here. It's Sunday into Monday, right? It's this north turn. The faster Erin's moving, I think, the more likely it gets turned to the north. And it would be closer to Bermuda than it would be to the United States. So, I mean, there would be no direct impacts on the United States if this starts to turn north by Sunday. But if that turn is delayed, then we start getting more and more worried about North Carolina. I'm not really worried about Florida yet, that it can get close. Now, I don't think there would be a landfall. I've talked about that a lot, that I don't believe there would be a landfall along the east coast of the United States. And the reason I believe that is by the time we get into Wednesday of next week, there's going to be a dip in the jet stream, a trough coming into the eastern United States as we head into Wednesday. All right, no matter what model you look at. And here it is. This is Wednesday. This is European. You see this big dip in the jet stream? What would happen is this would cause enough steering winds out of the west-southwest to push Erin away from the United States. Now, it can get close to North Carolina, but I also believe that this trough would protect the Northeast. I will say this, that's the European model. The American model, this is a little bothersome to me with this trough this far west, but what has happened, according to the American model, the turn to the north occurred much earlier. So even though the trough is way back here, the turn north occurred and it would escape farther east. But I'm telling you now, the end game is far, far away yet on how close this gets to the United States. I'm telling you that right now. Let's show you. I want to show you what this looks like. We'll keep it simple. We'll keep it to the American model versus the European model. So let's take a look at the modeling here. We'll look at it here. Here it is. Okay, let's go full with it right now. So this is Sunday morning. The key you're going to see here, let me make sure. Okay, the key to watch is this high pressure system coming toward Bermuda right in here. And this weakness, this little dip in the jet stream, because that determines where Erin goes. This is Sunday morning, American model, right? European, American, European, primarily the same. They're in the same location, right? Let's go to Monday morning. Here's the American model. Here is the European, American, European. I want you to concentrate right here. Notice how the European, this is the islands of Bermuda, right? See, what the European does, and it's been doing this for the last couple of days, it has this high pressure system extending toward Bermuda, keeping Erin to the south. Also, what you're also going to notice with this is that this dip in the jet stream on the European is lifting and leaving, right? So the high extends, and that keeps Erin to the south. That's the European model. The American model, watch the difference with this, and especially this line here, which is the high pressure system. European model, American. European, American. Couple of things. Notice first, this dip in the jet stream. There's the European. Watch the American model has it a little farther south. You see that? Not much, but it's enough. The big difference is with this upper high. Notice this 591 line here. So the upper high extends toward Bermuda on the European, but the American model, nope. It's way back here. And then there's the weakness in here to allow Erin to make the turn north right around 75 degrees west. That's what the American model's doing. And once that happens, Monday morning, that's game, set, and match. There will be no direct impacts, no rain and wind along the east coast of the United States. You see, it just continues to take it northward. But again, the European not only keeps this high pretty far to the west on Monday morning. Monday, let me turn this off. Monday morning. But it keeps that high and it keeps building it to the west even Monday evening. Take a look at that. That 591 line is here. Here's your upper high. And notice the 588 line, the trough, is lifting northward, right? Right there. You see how everything is lifting northward. There's less flow. And Erin is still moving to the west-northwest. By this time, the American model is already turning it to the northeast. Why? It has a little bit of a stronger trough, a little bit in here. That's the American. That's the European. Look at the American model. Look how different, though. The big thing is this. The upper high is retreating, so your steering flow's coming out of the west-southwest. That's a huge difference. By Tuesday morning, look at the European model. The high is still building near Bermuda. You see that? And the trough is gone. It's gone. So the west-northwest move continues, and if anything, looking at this European, I think this is, looking at the pattern, I think this still might be too far to the east. It may still be moving to the west. That's my concern. The American model says, no way. Nope. This upper high is long gone. Look at the difference. Look at the difference. European, American, European, American, European, American, European, American. See that? Look at the 591 line. See? And then the European does eventually, even Tuesday night, it still has the extension of this high all the way even west of Bermuda, and the American model shows this. See, that's a big difference. You can see why the upper high is weaker. This really is concerning to me for the European, because that tells me the upper high is in here, and the European is starting to turn it based on this weather pattern. On this, if this would be right, I don't think it's moving north. I still think it's moving more west and north. That's what concerns me about this getting close to the North Carolina coast. Let me give you another view of this. Let's look at the North American map background, and you can see it here as well to get a better sense of what this looks like for North Carolina. So this is Tuesday night. That's the European. There's the GFS. European, look at that upper high north of the storm. Look on the European. There's the GFS. Wednesday morning, European GFS. European GFS. European, it's long gone. And you have to worry about Bermuda on the GFS, the American model. The European's way back here. And what I don't like about this on the European, your trough axis is back here. You see that? It's back here. And that tells me that this storm could still be moving to the west-northwest. I tend to trust the European most with the overall weather pattern. That's my concern, that this has the potential of coming farther to the west. Now, the modeling has been shifting slowly but surely to the west. That's my worry. That's why, now listen, we haven't ruled out anybody yet, but when you look at our map, and I want to show you our iPath here so you can get a good sense of what we're doing here. This is our iPath, and we've been nudging it west. Now, you can see we have it way out in here, but I want you to look at here. Notice Sunday, look at how the window diverges as far east as Bermuda, and then still west, and then as far west as the Outer Banks of North Carolina. That's what we're watching. This is the key move. How does that upper high interact with the storm? We have Category 4, by the way, early next week. I'm not sure of the answer yet. I'm really not. Now, history, and I love history. You can't ignore history. I understand that every storm's different, but history says it's only a 15% chance of having a direct impact along the eastern seaboard. So history says 15%. This pattern concerns me. So I like, not many people will do this, but if you look at the history and the environment right now, we decided to go with a 70% chance of no direct impacts, or what we would call a 30% chance of a direct impact. That would be the Outer Banks of North Carolina, especially eastern North Carolina. However, again, this number, it looks like, oh, it's only a 30% chance, but history says it's 85. So we're going even a lower chance of no direct impacts. And I'm telling you right now, I don't trust this one bit. Oh, wait, you didn't see the graphic. See, there it is. So given the historical tracks, I've got to average them in. I think this is more 50-50, but you know what? You got to average in history. And this is a tricky call. Again, I don't think there's a landfall. If there would be one, it would be in the Outer Banks. I don't think that's the case. I still think there's enough trough, although that trough axis on the European is very concerning to me on Wednesday. That's why I think the end game is far from over with Erin. And the other story is Erin's going to be a large hurricane. It's going to be a big hurricane that's going to be able to move a lot of water. And I'm telling you, even if you're in the Northeast, you're going to have rough surf and rip currents. And if this gets, I'd say, within 100 miles, maybe 100 miles of the Outer Banks, they'll have damage. You'll have a damaging storm surge, 3 to 5 feet. You're going to be watching houses on the Outer Banks go into the ocean. You may get that anyway. They're so prone to this. And the other area to watch is going to be the Virginia Beach area, because the wind will go northeast and that funnels down into the coast toward Virginia Beach and Norfolk. In fact, we haven't updated this map at all since we drew it. Well, we've updated it a little bit here. I want to show you this map. This is the risk of rain and wind, and we extended it to Virginia Beach and down toward Wilmington. I don't think you're going to get any impacts. I think it's actually Myrtle Beach on south. It's very unlikely, but we haven't cleared you yet. And we haven't cleared anybody along the East Coast. But I mean, I would be shocked if the impacts of rain and wind got anywhere, well, certainly not Wildwood on north. But even though you have low impacts and it's unlikely, you're going to get the indirect impacts, the rough surf and the rip currents. We're still going to put the medium for Atlantic Canada, but I think there's too much troughiness here. So that's the time frame here. As I go back to this is the time frame to watch. Sunday into Monday, that's the fork in the road. And as we go through this weekend, I think this will be shifted west. And I'm worried that you can have a track like this. I think this is not out of the question at all. A track that goes like this. Well, maybe not that far. Let's do it this way. Something like that, or something like this, that it can get within 100 miles of the Outer Banks. And this is going to be a large hurricane. So you can get hurricane conditions along the Outer Banks. Can't rule it out. I think it's very unlikely in Florida, but until I want to see the north turn. When I see the north turn, we'll eliminate Florida for now. All right. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions or comments, you can follow me on X. I'm at AccuRayno. Again, up and down the eastern seaboard, rough surf, maybe damaging surf, and rip currents all next week. Again, this is going to end up being a large, powerful hurricane that's going to move a lot of water. It's like a plunger in the ocean, right? And the waves move outwards, and things are going to get rough and tough along the eastern coast all next week. Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend.